Welcome back to Inside North Carolina Real Estate. Today, we're focusing on one group specifically, and that's buyers because we're in the spring market. So, if you've been on the fence, unsure about what to do, what's going on with the competition, this is the place for you.
We're talking about what's actually happening right now, what we're seeing with our clients, and how buyers can position themselves to win today.
And more importantly, how to make smart decisions. Don't want you out there making emotional decisions on what is really the biggest investment that you'll ever make in your lifetime.
I hope you guys are ready. I'm Terrence Boykin with Boykin Realty here in the Triangle.
And I'm Donald Smith with Broker Smith at North Group on the coast.
And I'm Zeke Farrington here in Charlotte with Zane Real Estate Advisors, brokered by Compass Carolinas.
Well, guys, let's get right into it. And let's just start with what are buyers walking into right now that the spring market's here in your areas?
I think for us, what we're seeing, you're getting an initial push from sellers who have been waiting and they're running out of their timeline. And so they're pushing to get their properties on the market. The catch is that they're going in way higher than what they should. And
Mhm.
so when you start looking at list price right now, you need to be making sure that your agent is running a market analysis to make sure that your offers are in step with what the value of the house is.
And how does that reflect for buyers right now? Are you seeing in your area that the price houses are overpriced? And would you say that what techniques would you give for buyers in that situation?
Yeah. So I think what's happened here is that the new construction has inflated the resale market. And if I was a buyer right now, I would be looking at two different things. The new construction, if I can get in on phase one or phase two, if I'm not getting in on phase one or phase two, I'm shifting over to construction that is somewhere between 1990 and 2000. I think that's where the budget value is in our market. It's a
Yep.
little bit older, but you have mature landscaping, larger yards. You may have a little bit of maintenance to do, but the bones are much better 1990 to 2000 than what they are in the new construction.
I'm glad you put that way. I've heard very few agents talk about that specific time frame, and that's a lot of what I'm seeing, especially here. I work a lot in the Garner area, just outside of Raleigh, and that's what we're seeing. Really, 75 to about 95
Yeah.
is what I'm seeing. A lot of the brick ranches, split
Yeah.
levels, that kind of thing.
Well, that's funny because that's just like it is like with say cars or for us older folks. You guys are young. You're probably in your 20s, so you're not like me, close to 60. But the older something is, the better built it is, right? As we kind of get newer and newer, we say that your mother say, "Oh, such and such just wasn't built the way it used to be," right?
Right.
So it's a really good point that with that particular age range of resale homes that you focus on. That's awesome.
Yeah. What are you seeing out west, Zeke?
Well, we're pretty much like what Donald said. It's the hot spot is really new construction. And like I said, trying to hit it within that first round. But also inventory homes that the new construction that these builders have. We've been able to get some really good deals. Just recently got what I thought was a great deal on a townhome in Indian Land, South Carolina, which is just outside of Charlotte. If you didn't know anybody, you'd actually think you were in Charlotte, but things are we're kind of expanding out to the South Carolina area now, the Charlotte region. But yeah, inventory homes that they have where they may have fallen through for another buyer. It's an opportunity for my buyer to come in and get some extra kickbacks and better interest rates and all of that. And being able to move in within like 3 weeks.
That's the thing I've seen. I've seen with the buyers I have a couple properties that were under contract and now we're back on the market last week. So that's a big thing to stay on the lookout for. Let's say you as a buyer do find that perfect property and it goes under contract. Stay in your agent's ear asking about that property for the next 60 days because it might come out of contract and hit back on the market. And as soon as it gets back on the market, you want to get that offer in.
In speaking of that, What we found here this past week is that even if your offer is rejected and it's sitting there, these sellers, they start getting nervous. And one of the things that we found that has been very successful here with a couple of our buyers is once we've gotten rejected, we would go back and ask about once a week. We'd find a question to ask the agent just to keep us top of mind with it
Yep.
and just kind of
Mhm.
play the long game and wear them down. We just put one under contract on Sunday that we had been working back and forth for 2 months trying to get the price, and because our buyer just kinda held firm, at the end of the day, we ended up locking in at the price that our buyer had set 2 months ago, but we had to stay consistent and persistent about the way in which we approached that seller with it.
That's a great strategy. That's a great strategy. One of the
Yeah.
things I'm seeing here, you guys are talking new construction today. I'm usually the new construction guy, but in our market right now, I've seen in the last 2 weeks more buyers out, and I haven't come across a multiple offer situation in months. And we had one that my buyers have been looking at. They looked at almost a month ago. It was at 275. The price got dropped to 250. We saw it this weekend, put an offer in. I got a message from the agent last night, listing agent, that they've got 3 offers on the table. And I was negotiating with him this morning before the call, and he's asking to raise some certain specific things. So this is up to all you buyers. The buyers are back out now. If you want to beat the demand, because that's going to rise and rise and rise and rise. I'm thinking the end of April, beginning of May, that's when we're going to see the most buyers out. So if you're out now, I recommend getting that offer in. Because that's going to be, I think, your best chance at the best price right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
We talked about that. So, guys, what do you think about affordability versus strategy? The big word now is affordability. But do we even know what that means? And when I think about that, I think about playing the game versus buying a house. Wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I think that the first question has to be whether or not we're looking at this from a month-to-month payment standpoint, or we're looking at the big picture
Yep,
with the built-in equity on the final deal, and that's really gonna depend on which way our buyer is. If we're playing the month-to-month game, then we're definitely looking at trying to keep our interest rates down, because obviously that's important. But if we have a buyer that's more concerned about the equity, what I'll tell you is you disregard the interest rates right now. Don't pay attention to the interest rate. You need to go ahead and buy. And I'll say that to a buyer this month to month as well. You need to go ahead and buy, because the interest rates inevitably are probably going to go up again. They're going to come back down again, but they're going to sit between 6.5 and 7.5. But the inflation's getting ready to jump because of
yeah,
what's going on with the oil. And the moment the inflation comes up and the dollar bill value goes down, inflation starts to rise. And in the next 6 months to 24 months, what we're going to see is we're going to see something that's going to be kind of similar to what we saw in 2022, where the prices begin to spike. And so if you wait to the interest rates to come down when the prices start going up, well, you really haven't gained any ground.
I
But if
agree.
you can absorb the extra 1% for the next 6 to 12 months, you're going to find yourself with a pot of gold that you're going to be able to cash out in about 3 years and walk away feeling really good about the situation.
That's where, us as the buyer's agent, helps them with, understanding their numbers before we go in, right? So making sure that we get them with the lender, make sure that just all the numbers are in line with what they're expecting, the payment that they can handle, and also even just talking to the lender in advance, depending on where that home is, there may be some opportunity for assistance on it, right? So whether it's down payment assistance, and that's something for buyers to discuss with your lender. We won't get into that, but down payment assistance. And also I can tell you that I have been hearing a bunch of 100% financing here in the Charlotte area here just over the last 2 weeks, just in talking to various lenders. They are pushing 100% financing programs. So there's some stipulations to that. Again, definitely invite you to speak to your lender. And if you don't have one, then the three of us certainly have lenders that we could put you in contact with.
When you're looking at those different programs, because I've worked with buyers in the past, they're great programs. Please, 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 please have a discussion with your lender who's bringing you that program of what you're gonna have to bring to the table, because we get a lot of
Mhm.
programs that are your closing costs are paid, all this stuff, but you're still gonna have to pay your due diligence fee and your
Mhm.
earnest money fee if that's part of the offer. You still might have to pay up front for inspection and appraisal. A lot of them include it, but you may have to pay that up front. So
Right.
that cost could be anywhere from 1,000 to $7,000 depending on the type of house that you're buying. So I think a lot of people go in thinking, well, I'm not going to have anything up front.
Right.
And
Right.
then they get kind of caught. And I can say that specifically because I've got
Mhm.
clients that are in that situation, that were in that situation. So that's one thing you really want to look at when you're looking at the different programs is pepper that lender with questions.
Right.
Every financial aspect of it you can to find out exactly where you're going to be.
Yeah. Following up with that, I think if you're going to use down payment assistance, and I'll say this from both sides of it. I'll say it first of all from the buyer agent side of it. I'm going to be looking at properties that are 45 days on market or greater,
Great point.
because that's the properties that sellers are starting to get anxious on. From the selling standpoint of it, my advice to my sellers, if I have multiple offers or I'm waiting on offers and one of them is clean, the other one has down payment assistance, I'm really pushing them away from the down payment assistance just because there's extra steps in it, right?
Mhm.
But once we get past that 30-day marker to that 45-day marker, you have to we're not in the same world anymore. So we start loosening up what we're going to look at and what we'll accept. And because
Mhm.
the properties that sit at 45 days kind of still have that little black eye from the 2022 to the 2024 boom, they're not getting the same competition, and all those offers that are coming with down payment assistance will see a lot more success in properties that have been on the market 45 days or more.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things on that as well about knowing what's there, when you go through these programs, a lot of them, you're watching videos, you're in person, and they're telling you because with a lot of these programs, the inspection there's certain things that have to be met. Let's just use age of roof as a big one. Some of them say
Mhm.
you can't
Mhm.
have limbs over the top of the houses. Now, because you've gone through that program and your lender may say, hey, I've got XYZ agent that can help you with this program, or your agent may say, yeah, I know that program. There's a big chance they don't. They're just saying that to keep you as their client. And they may be overlooking some of those things. So when you're going with these programs, you'll want to know how old is the roof? Are there trees hanging over? If is a water leak going to be an issue? Does the window have to be replaced in order for this program to work? So you really want to do your homework there. Right now, how can we take what we just talked about and how can buyers win right now as far as negotiation, looking at houses, timing, all that stuff?
Here's what I think: if we're looking for wins, right? Again, I'll keep going back to the new construction. If you've got inventory houses or you're in that front couple of phases, it's a great time to go ahead and hit those and lock those down. Again, I wouldn't pay attention to the interest rates. In fact, what I would do though is I would let my personal lender compete with the builder's lender to see if I can get them to offset it somewhere so that you get that win as well. When it comes to older houses, I would really push. I would push for two different sets of earnest money so that I would be able to sit through my inspections right now, because a lot of these houses that people are going to be buying on a budget are going to have the roof issues. And it's not just the down payment assistance, it's also going to be the insurance companies. So I want to make sure that I put my buyer in a situation that if they're strapped for cash, we have the ability to build into the contract having the vendor paid at closing so we can get through the process. And I feel like if we are in homes that have been on the market for a little bit longer, we have a better opportunity to be able to capture some of that to keep a deal moving all the way through the transaction.
Yep.
Right. Right. That's a good point. Also, if a buyer is willing to travel a little bit, here we're moving further out from Charlotte now. Again, South Carolina line is right here. Carowinds, many of you know about Carowinds. It's pretty much like across the line. It's obviously still in North Carolina, but it feels like it's right across the line. So, but there are neighborhoods that are now going up that are 30, 40 minutes away, brand new neighborhoods, but they're sit right off of the highway. So they're like maybe a half mile from the highway. Again, Charlotte, just like I'm sure in your areas, it's getting so busy. 1,000 people a week that are moving here. So we're starting to find more deals for buyers that are willing to travel at least 30 to 40 minutes, and most of that would actually be on the highway. For example, I was looking at homes last week in what's called the Chester, South Carolina. It's about 35 minutes outside of Charlotte. The same exact build in Chester is about $300,000. That floor plan here in Charlotte is 450. So if you're just willing to travel 30 to 40 minutes to work, I mean, that's a huge savings right there.
That's a huge win. I'm seeing it here in Raleigh. The interstates and the roads that have really been under construction since I was here at NC State, hate to say it, 30 years ago, they're in place now. And it's exactly that. You can go what used to be 45 minutes from Raleigh, but now because the roads are the way they should be, it's 25 minutes. And you can get a house $300,000 out there, which is 375 to 425 within Raleigh. That's a great thing to look at. The other thing I'd say is I've had several, but one builder specific send me an email for 2.99% 30-year rate, and it's in one of those neighborhoods that's about 45 minutes from Raleigh. Um, but it's doable. And if you can work at home, if you don't have to be in town a lot, that is an amazing rate to have. And it's a very good builder that's offered it,
Right.
2.99%.
We're seeing the same thing on the coast, right? The further you get out, if you're in Wilmington, you're going to pay 450,000 dollars. Move right across the bridge to Leland, you're going to be somewhere 375 to 425. And if you're willing to go another 25 miles out, we're going to be somewhere around 325 to 350. So you're dropping incrementally by about 50,000 the further you move out. And I get the same objection that you guys probably get with this, which is, oh, I don't want to be that far away. I don't want to be that far away. But you're right. The construction and the way that the roads are. So what I tell people, and inevitably every time we do this, they come back with the same thing. I said, before you write this off, let's time it. I want you to go and drive from the area I'm telling you to into where you got to be at work. And I want you to time it. And then I want you to time it going from one side of New Hanover County all the way to your work. And you
Yeah.
time that. And then you tell me which one's faster. And inevitably, the longer drive is about 75% of the time of what it would take the shorter drive through all of that traffic in
Yeah.
Wilmington. So it may feel longer, but truth is your time is going to be much shorter. It's going to be a much more enjoyable commute to work and back, and you're going to get into a house $100,000 cheaper. So it seems to be a win-win if they'll go and test to make sure that it's actually closer.
And one of the other things about those kind of outlying areas, when you're touring those houses, take a look at your drive to it. Is there a strip mall being built? Do you see a sign? The big grocery stores here are Publix and Harris Teeter or Lowe's Foods. If you see one of those signs, you're in a good spot. Civilization is going to catch up to you pretty quickly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
So
took the words right out of my mouth, Terrence. That is exactly it. And of course, we don't have a crystal ball, right? But still,
I
if
got one.
you right, if you're willing to go out to those areas and just wait and
Yeah.
watch things build up around you, then think about what that's gonna do for your property values as well.
Yep.
So it definitely something to look into.
Got it.
yeah.
So we talked about the positives, what we see coming. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you're seeing right now and that you are projecting to see over the next couple months when it comes to buyers?
I think it's because we've been in a market for a while. Buyers can just take their time. Homes are are not flying off the market. They're sitting a bit longer now. So buyers have been able to really just kind of take their time, go back and look at a home, a second time, a third time, things of that nature because they see that, oh well, it's been on the market for this long, then I can wait. So it's been an advantage to them. But like you said, now we're kind of getting into that time of the year where it's going to start picking up.
Yeah.
Spring is here, and now after we fight through all of this pollen, we're going to be focused on getting these homes. It's we're going to be going into a new school year soon. Time flies, right? So you buyers have to think about there's going to be others going to be looking and positioning themselves, thinking about their kids who are, what schools they want to be in, trying to get into those neighborhoods. So if you see a home that you like, and if you're one of those buyers and you want to make sure your kids in a good school system, et cetera, et cetera, well, guess what? You're not the only one. So if you see a home, don't look at going back a second, third time. You want to go on and make a move.
Yeah. I agree with that. A little bit of a difference on that, which I found helpful. And I was going to say earlier about advice to buyers, that second showing. I think right now that second showing is showing to that listing agent that you guys are serious. Now, I don't recommend seeing the house on Saturday and then scheduling a second showing on the next Saturday. I recommend seeing the house on Saturday if it's something you really like, getting back in on Sunday at the latest on Monday. I think that'll show that listing agent and that buyer that you're really interested.
Yeah, and a couple things with that. I think the initial showing, you're really just trying to make sure that you like the house, you like the area. But truth of the matter is, the area is more than just what the house is when you went and saw it during
Yeah.
business hours. And so, if you have the opportunity to go back in the evening after everyone gets off work, or if your showing was close enough to the weekend for you to get out into that neighborhood and just go walk the sidewalks on a Saturday morning, you're going to get a full vibe of what's going to be going on in that community and whether or not it's going to be a fit for you. So I would definitely say, if you get a chance, go walk the neighborhood, get a feel for who the neighbors are going to be. You're going to learn a lot about whether or not this is going to be a place that you're going to be able to connect. The other thing I would say to that is, especially when we're looking at resale, that second showing, you really need to go into it strategically. And this should be it's kind of like a walkthrough. You want to go through and see all the things that you can see visibly that's wrong with it. Take that into consideration with your price. But whenever you go to submit that offer, you go ahead and tell them, we're not going to come back for this, 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 and this. Go ahead and take those items off the table so that they know that you're not going to come back and renegotiate those. It's going to help offset the bite of maybe your offer not being a full price offer. But if they know that they're not going to have to deal with that in due diligence, it could very well be a win. So that would be the way that I would tell my buyers to approach it. Let's just go ahead and be transparent on it, tell them what we're looking for, what we're not going to be looking for. And we've already taken that into consideration so that your lower offer will be a little bit stronger. And then here's the other thing that I would do with it. They're always going to want the due diligence and the earnest money to be significant.
Yeah.
Usually with ours, we typically tell our sellers that we expect from a buyer to bring in at least 1% of the offer price in earnest money and 0.5% in due diligence. But what I would say now is, if you're trying to protect the earnest money and there's some things that you still need to look at that you're probably not going to have enough time to do during that short due diligence, add in a second earnest money deposit. It will function just like a second due diligence deposit. So it'll buy you a couple of extra weeks, and then you can even add a little more to the earnest money by doing it that way to make the offer feel bigger, but you've actually given yourself a little extra protection at the same time to not put all of your money at risk at one spot.
And just to break that down for you buyers, when he's saying that second earnest, you might strategically have that scheduled so that that second earnest money comes in 3 days after you know you're going to have the home inspection. That way, you know that you're past one of those hurdles, and you feel a little more comfortable with that money. One thing, a mistake, Donald, big thing you mentioned, and I feel like a proud papa with my clients right now, because when we started the process, they saw one of the houses we looked at. The neighbor was in her backyard, so I walked over and asked her about the neighborhood. I did it once more. Then the third time I did it, I noticed the husband walked with me because he saw what I was doing, and he walked with me to see one of the guys that was walking in the neighborhood to ask him. And then last weekend, I saw the neighbor out cutting his grass. So did my buyer. And my buyer just went ahead over and started talking to the neighbor. That is one of the best things you can do in that neighborhood, to find out from them, what they think about it. Be nice to them. You're thinking about moving in. I'm bringing my family. What are your thoughts on the neighborhood? One of the best things you can do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very good. Very good. I like that.
Let's see. And then final advice to buyers. What's like the big tip you could give buyers going into the spring market?
Disregard the interest rates. Go ahead and pull the trigger on it. You're going to thank us later when you get ready to resell it or you need to pull cash out for equity. In 3 years, you're going to walk around looking like a real estate genius.
Yep. Yep.
I'd say have a plan. If you know that you're going to be looking for a home, even if you're renting and your lease is not up for another 9 months, go on and sit down with an agent. Just to start planning and making sure you know what the process is. Go on and talk to your lender. You don't have to commit to anything, but at least you can get hip to what programs are out there, what might be better suited for you based on your credit at the time or what have you. So having a plan, especially going into the time where, again, if you have kids, you're going to be thinking about the school system or what have you. So you want to make sure that you're moving at a nice pace and you're knowledgeable about what's going on.
Got it. Got it. I think it's having that conversation with your realtor when you're starting to get a strategy and know every step of the process and be clear, crystal clear with your realtor on what you're willing to offer for properties. Because if you tell your agent, well, I'm only going to pay 250, but you would pay 260 for it, but you think your agent's not going to stand firm, let the agent know that because that could be the difference in you winning an offer. So just have that plan with a couple different scenarios so you're prepared for it, so once you see that perfect house, then we're not having that conversation, let's say on Saturday night, then you got to think about it on Sunday, then the agent can't get in touch with you because you're at church on Sunday, and then you're having dinner Sunday night and we can't get the offer signed on Monday. Well, they already accepted an offer on Sunday night. So go ahead and game plan everything before you're starting to see houses.
And I'll follow up with that and say that you have to be transparent with your agent.
Yeah.
When you start holding back
Yep.
the information of what your bottom lines really are, what you're doing is you are handcuffing your agent that's representing you to be able to get the best price for you on that property. And I think a lot of the reason we do that is because we treat real estate agents like car salesmen. Well, the difference is the car salesman works for the dealership, your agent works for you. And so they have one just their whole loyalty lies with one person, and that's the client. And if you're not transparent with them, then they're going to negotiate on bad faith, and they're not going to come up with the best deal that you could get on the property. So be transparent with your agent.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to end the video today.
Look, I will tell you every time I say that in every agency meeting that I have,
Yep.
and they all shake their head. Oh yeah, I get it. Until we get to that point, and the ones that don't listen, we inevitably lose $25,000 either on from the seller or on the buy side of it because we didn't negotiate the correct way early on because I had a different break point than what the
Mhm.
reality of it was, and it ends up costing them every single time.
And that
Yeah.
goes to one of the notes I see in our video notes. Make sure you're making a smart move, not just a fast move.
That's it.
That's it. Thank you guys for being on today. Anybody, if you have questions about real estate anywhere throughout the state of North Carolina on the east, reach out to Donald. Out west, reach out to Zeke. And if you're in the triangle, give me a call. Thank you guys. See ya.